In our previous video, we talked about the importance of a payday routine. So in this video, we're going to be going through automating your finances. You're not giving opportunity for bad money habits to potentially sabotage your journey to financial freedom. The key thing, a payday routine is good, but making sure you've got it, as much of it automated as you can, is how you go from good to great. And for me, it's just like, we have all this technology around us, mobile banking. It's the stupidest idea in history not to take advantage of some of this for you. And automating your finances just makes sure that your good money habits are they are automated, and it can just really help to make sure that you're applying these habits consistently. And at the end of this video, I'm going to be going through what I think for me is the key thing that makes the difference. So the first one is to enroll in your pension. Speak to your HR department, speak to your people team, speak to your whatever team it is, your payroll team, and just find out from them what is the maximum that you can contribute that they will match to. Because knowing what that number is can start to give you a guide. As we talked about in the previous video, you contribute this much, they contribute this much. That is a 100% return on your money. Make sure you're enrolled in your pension. If you can reasonably afford it, make sure you're maximising their contributions as well. It's money which is tax-free and is going to fund your retirement, so it's really important. Having separate and specific accounts. I'm not an absolute lunatic. I don't have like 20 different bank accounts, like one for car, one for holiday, one for this, one for the other. No. I just have a current account, we have a joint account, we have a savings account, and all the investment stuff. And for me, it's so much easier for me to identify that I'm tracking towards a particular financial goal. And so your current account, which you get paid into, and that's also your savings account or your emergency funds, then it can just be really difficult to see all this money going in and out and really be able to accurately track your balance. So I have a Goldman Sachs Marcus account, which we use for our emergency fund, and money just goes in there every month. And I can just look at that balance and know, boom, that's how much is in my emergency fund. And I can just look in our joint account and go, this is our savings account, how much money is in there. And so I don't have to look at a balance and go, oh, but I need to take off this, I need to add on that, blah, blah, blah. Just automate it. Having appropriate accounts. Now this is linked to the previous point about the accounts. There's a lot of personal preference built into this one. If you have a savings account or you have money that you're putting your savings into, make sure it's a savings account. One of the few benefits of this higher interest rate environment is that you actually get a return on your money for having it in an account, something which 15 years of low interest rates has not necessarily yielded us. But just make sure the account does what you need it to do. If it's your savings account, you don't need to access that money very often and you can swap that for a slightly better interest rate, then look into that. But just make sure that it's the sort of account that does what you need it to do. Interest rate, accessibility, all that sort of thing. Just make sure that the account is appropriate for the use that you've given it. Putting your fixed bills on direct debit. Not a whole lot is fixed in life, but you have some bills which just, you know what they're going to be every single month. And I think the easiest thing to do is just put them on a direct debit. And this is basically for a few reasons. The first is unable to make a payment at some stage, a whole plethora of possible opportunities and potential foul ups. So it reduces that risk. People are forgetful. I forget shit all the time. So just making sure that they're automated just takes your risk down to zero. They're bills that you're going to have to pay anyway. So just them, why wouldn't you? So all of this is preparation for the day you get paid. First thing you do, check your payslip. Lots of people don't do it. I've never really understood why. Just check you got paid what you got paid last month, that everything's been deducted correctly, and if you have any questions, just ask your payroll team. It's a really quick and easy thing to do. There are some problems where identifying them early just makes life so much easier for you than it is to rectify them. A good example is if you're moving jobs, just make sure your tax code is where you're expecting it to be. It can be one of the really, problematic areas of when you move jobs is you get subject to an emergency tax code and then you do that for a few months and then you have to claim it back later. But actually just making sure you're on the correct tax code from the get-go, your pension contributions are square from day one, life is easier. Automate your emergency fund. This is one of those ones which for me is kind of split into two. As we talked about in the previous video, the generally accepted principle is to have between 3 and 6 months of expenses in your emergency fund. I think this logic is perfectly sound and I have no need or cause to challenge it. But I think the key thing that you need to be looking at is how much you've got in that emergency fund. If you've only got 2 months in there and you want to get to your 6 months, then make sure you keep those contributions up. But just make sure that you're checking in on the balance, because I never understood why people have like 18 months or something of expenses in their emergency fund. If you're going to go on a gap year or do that whole thing, fine. That's money that you could potentially be investing and getting a better rate of return on. So absolutely make sure you're automating your emergency fund. even if you're at that 6 months, maybe you've got some big bills coming down the line, you just keep contributing to it a little bit, just keeping an eye on it, and then you can really fine tune what your contributions look like compared to what you want the overall size of your emergency fund to be. Automate your saving and investing. So we've already talked about your pension. Your pension is money that won't even hit your account, and so it's free from the opportunity for bad habits to get hold of it. But saving and investing is still going to be a really important part of your financial journey. You don't have to be saving for or investing for something specific. I think it's a good habit that you should be basically practicing as early as you reasonably can. And as we always talk about, when it comes to saving and investing, we're talking about little and often as early as you reasonably can, so that the compounding effect of interest and of those returns is doing as much of the work for you as it reasonably can. And it can do a lot, like a lot. So early and often saves you many sleepless nights in future. Automate saving for your kids. We had another video, link is just here, about how important it is. Your kids, by obviously being younger than you, have the benefit of time, and one of the benefits of time is the benefit of compounding. So we did a video about how to make your kids millionaires for not very much money every month. The key thing really here is what you want to set your kids up for. Maybe you want to help them avoid university tuition fees, maybe you want to help them get on the property ladder. Decide what that goal is and just start as early as you can. But again, automating those deposits will just make things much easier. Me personally, we still have junior ISAs for both of our kids, and that's just because it's money that we don't want to have the temptation. But I guess it's all about, what you're doing up here in the grey top. If you can be really disciplined, then I think that's obviously a very different set of circumstances. Budget check-in. Now, I'm not suggesting you let Skynet take a look at your finances for you, but I think just having a day every month where maybe it's you on your own, maybe it's you with your partner, just sit down and go through your finances.
To discuss finances.
Because nothing is sexier than, hey, it's budget day, it's budget review day, you know what I mean? So, but just having a recurring day every single month where you sit down, go through your finances, I think can just be a really beneficial way of talking openly about money. And critically, by having it timetabled in 1 month, 2 month, 3 month intervals or whatever, it just means you're in a situation where you don't go 12 months without talking about it. Set up alerts. Don't get me wrong, you don't need to have every single siren blaring out because you spent 20p more than your budget or something like that.
Recommend alert 1, recommend alert 1.
Recommend alert 1.
I think there are plenty of really good apps. A lot of banking apps will offer these kinds of notifications, but just having something in there to really make sure that when you're going overdrawn, you get a notification say, hey, by the way, a bit more money's gone out of your account. Even if it's just as basic as reminders in your calendar to make sure you put money in the account for the mortgage to come out. Make sure you've paid your credit card bill on time. Automation, for me, has a whole plethora of possible opportunities. It can go all the way down to a written list, which I would not necessarily recommend. Somewhere in the middle is like having reminders in your calendar, recurring reminders, all the way up to everything is on direct debits. So pick where you want to be on that spectrum, because I think that's one of the really important things, is doing something that you think works for you. As always, we talk about on this channel, make sure you pick a method or pick somewhere on the spectrum that works for you. Review your contributions. So for me, this is another kind of important one which is often overlooked, but maybe you get a bonus or a pay rise, or maybe your premiums for something go up, maybe your council tax goes up. And so just making sure that you're sitting down and you're reviewing your incomings and your outgoings. If you can contribute a bit more to your savings, make sure you're doing that. If you get your pay rise at the end of the year, then make sure you're updating your budget so that you're still putting 20% towards your savings and investing. And I think this is just something that can so often be overlooked. The worry generally can be from day to day, but it can really take your eye off the longer term goals. So just sitting down every so often, whenever your income changes or whenever your expenses change, making sure that you're adjusting those, checking in on the balances, I think is really important. And then subsequently updating your budget to reflect those. And the final thing, the thing which for me is, this is the next level sort of stuff. So I get paid on about the 28th of the month usually. If that falls on a weekend, then I get paid on the Friday before. And because I know when I'm going to get paid, I have every single bill that is within my control come out on the first of the month. So it's probably about 20 different bills. It's the mortgage, it's the council tax, it's the savings fund, it's the ISAs, it's the junior ISAs for my boys, it's the phone bill, it's the mobile phone bill. It's absolutely everything comes out on the first of the month. So you might be thinking, well, that's no great hack, why do that? And the simple answer is, and for me, I really disagree. I think it just makes it such a big difference. all my bills come out in the morning, I can load up my phone when I get out of bed and I can just go, right, that is how much I have to spend on my wants. And just knowing that all of my other bills have been taken care of just makes life so much easier. It's not the case that I get paid on the 28th and some bills come out the 1st and some come out on the 7th and then the 10th and then the 14th, and then you've got constantly money dripping out, and it just leads you to a position where you basically run the risk of overspending. So that for me is really one of the key hacks. Have maybe income days and have outgoings days, and then you can just focus on the rest. Thanks very much for watching. Peace.